In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a DIY sleep mask. This is a soft sleep mask for blocking out light when you're sleeping, and it has an elastic band. Print off your template from the blog post, and then we're going to use this template to cut out a main fabric and a lining and one piece of fusible interfacing. I use lightweight fusible interfacing, and one piece of batting or felt. And then we're also going to need elastic. Any soft elastic is going to work for this. You can use lace elastic or this kind of double fold elastic. I like this too. So if you want to cut your piece of elastic, we need 14 inches. I'll just cut that before we get started. And if you're making this for a specific person, you can measure their head too and use that instead, but 14 inches will be our standard measurement for the elastic. So the first thing we need to do is we will fuse the interfacing to the back of the main fabric, and just put the dot side down. The rough side has the adhesive dots on it, and use your iron to adhere it. And then just make sure your main and lining are pressed well. Now we're going to make a stack with our fabric, batting, and lining. So first we'll put the main fabric on top of our batting and line it up. And then we can use our pattern piece to get the placement for the elastic. So you'll see there's lines on this side here. That's where you're going to want to put the elastic. So you can either draw those or just use the pattern piece for reference. And then we're going to pin the elastic right side down on those lines, and we want the raw edge of the elastic to line up with the raw edge of the sleep mask. And we're going to pin this inside of the sleep mask as we sew it so that it is on the outside after we sew it. So you can go ahead and baste those on, or just go ahead and pin the lining on, and we'll sew it all together. So the lining goes face down on top of this stack. And you just want to make sure all the edges are lined up before you pin, and then pin it in place. And we're going to sew around the face mask with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm just going to back stitch over the elastic a little extra just to keep it in place a little better, make it a little stronger. And then at the top, because the top is the flattest area, we're going to leave a little opening there for turning. So leave a 1.5 to 2 inch opening on the top when you sew. So after you've pinned, we're going to sew a 1/4 inch all the way around, leaving an opening. Okay, after you've sewn that, we're going to reduce the bulk on the seam allowance using either pinking shears, which will clip and trim the seam allowance at the same time, or use scissors to first clip the curves and then trim down the seam allowance to about 1/8 of an inch. Just cut the seam allowance down about in half. After you've done that, focusing on the curves, we're going to turn it right side out. And you can use a point turner for this if you have one. And the main thing here is we want to make sure we caught all our edges. Since our seam allowance is only a 1/4 inch, if you missed an edge, we're just going to have to redo it, and that's okay. So if you have any holes on the outside edge of your sleep mask, make sure you find those now and turn it back inside out and go ahead and fix those. So I'm using a point turner here, and then I'm going to press my sleep mask with some steam, and just make sure you get all the curves kind of pressed out. And once you've done that, you're going to focus on the top here. So we're going to want to turn this under 1/4 inch so that the edges line up with our sewn edges. And then we'll press that, and as we top stitch, we'll close this opening. Okay, so I'm going to pin it too. Pin that in place. And sometimes if you didn't backstitch, like I didn't backstitch very well, there's some little threads at the top, and you can kind of use those, pull them out if you need to, or you can use them to kind of guide your fabric over. And then we'll trim those. If you have any curved edges that won't pop out, you can stick a pin in them and kind of pull them out a little, roll them out, and then press them again. Just want to make sure that shape's really nice. Okay, so now we're going to top stitch around the top of this sleep mask about 1/8 of an inch from the edges. Give your sleep mask a final press, and you're done.